Hey everybody, in this video we're going to be talking about conditional statements. Now I told you in a previous video that expressions have the type of numbers and strings. There's another type, however, booleans. So a boolean can either be true or false. So what do I mean? Well, in Python you can type out the word true and you get the word true, and the word false and we get false. And that's just what they mean. Something is true or something is false or not true. Now notice that these have capital letters. If you do lowercase true, it won't know what you're talking about, right? So just keep that in mind. Now, well, what can be true and what can be false? And this is going to come down to the question of equality and inequality checking. So I previously mentioned that like if we had a variable like x equals 5, that the equals isn't really checking for equality, but is an assignment. So how do we see if x is equal to 5? Well, we use the double equal sign. So we just take two equal symbols and do that. And indeed, we get that when testing x equals 5, we get that's true. So what if I want to do other operations, such as is x greater than 3? Well, that is true. Similar to math, just do the less than or equal to sign. Is x less than 3? False. We also support other operations like less than or equal to, 5, true. And then greater than or equal to 5, true. I notice I just switched those up. Sorry, that's x greater than or equal to 5, and then x less than or equal to 5. And we have the not equals operator. So is x not equals to 5? That's false. We know that x is equal to 5. Is x not equal to 6? Well, that's true, because we know it's 5. So these are various statements that we can use to derive true and false results. So, likewise, we can store the results of these true and false tests in variables. So say I have the variable y, that's going to be equal to the result of whether or not x is going to be not equal to 5. And now we can say y is false, right? We take the expression is x not equal to 5, which is false, and we store it in y, and now y represents false. So, what can we do with variables, true and false? Well, let's say we had the following application where I'm trying to get some bank account, right? So say I have like my bank account and I'm just press enter a bunch of times and clear some space. So say I have like my balance, right? And say my balance is $100. But, I also have someone else, who serves the bank, maybe Greg, and his balance might be like $200. Well, I want one variable to keep track of our balances, and it could, either I could be using the bank or Greg could be using the bank. So how do we determine, well, based on a name, who's using the bank? And then likewise, who's using the bank? Well, what should the balance be? So say I have like a name variable that keeps track of the person's, name at the bank, and, or the person who's like using an ATM or at the bank or something like that. So say the name is equal to Mike. Since my balance is 100 and Greg's is equal to 200, like we could see, okay, I want to set balance equal to the right person's balance. All right, so say we can use an if statement. So if name is equal to Mike, and by the way, this double equals not only applies to numbers, it applies to strings, right? We're checking for equality in strings. So if the name is equal to Mike, well then I want balance to equal to 100, right? I want to say balance is equal to 100. If it's not, then I'm going to say I want I want balance being equal to, sorry about that. Here, I'll explain exactly what I mean in a couple seconds. Else, I want balance being equal to 200. Okay. All right, so let's see what balance is equal to. 100, which is absolutely correct. And also, I did mention, let me mention right now what I just did. So I used an if statement, and what this is checking is saying if name's equal to Mike, which we said over here, which it is, so then my balance is going to be 100. Else, meaning if it's not true, right, if this if statement is not true, then I'm going to go to the else, and I'm going to say balance is equal to 200. That means we're interfacing with Greg if we're the bank, right? The bank's either interfacing with me or Greg. Else balance is equal to 200. Now, notice that I have this indentation thing going on here. Indentation is super important. This is how you determine kind of which branch you go into. Notice right here how I have like two worlds right here, right? I have the world where balance is equal to 100, and I have the world where balance is equal to 200. So if balance is equal to 100, I don't want balance also being equal to 200, right? And this if statement guarantees that one of these worlds is going to exist, right? Like either name's equal to Mike, in that case the balance is going to be equal to 100, or exclusively balance is going to be equal to 200. So I have this indentation going here, and indentation means that this line of code is only going to execute if the line above it is equal to true, right? So this balance 100, this is only going to be accurate if the line above it is also accurate. So what I did here is that essentially what I typed out is that this if and this else should be on the same line, but then the resultants should be indented. Now it may not look like these are not on the same line, but that's because like what I have is like prompting the symbols right here that kind of push the if backwards. So really, if you get rid of these are on the same line, and then likewise these indentations are also on the same line. So that's a quick thing about indentation. If you don't get it right, it'll complain at you. I mean, here I added an extra indent, but like if should have been over here had it not been for these prompting lines. Now say I want to, complicate my bank account and have a third person, right? So say I have Mike, Greg, and I have Bill. Now Bill, his balance is going to be $300. Right, so Bill's balance is going to be equal to $300. Now I want a case on, well, is it Mike, Bill, or Greg? And and I guess likewise right here. So say like I have this if statement, right? But let me just say for the sake of example that I'm dealing with Greg right here, and I evaluate this if statement. Then balance is going to be equal to 200, right? Because it's not equal to Mike, and it'll be equal to Greg. So what I can use is an else if statement, or as Python likes to abbreviate it, elif, right? So elif, that's just going to stand for else if. You just drop that sc. So what my statement's going to become is it's going to become, if my name is equal to Mike, my balance is $100. If my name is equal to else if, and then I have to specify a condition, if my name is equal to Greg, then my balance is going to be $200. Right, so if the name's equal to Mike, if the name's equal to Greg, and then else, meaning all other cases, if the first two did not meet any criteria, then I'm dealing with Bill, so then my balance is going to be $300. So let's try this out, right? So I can copy and paste this line here, or the statement. Name's equal to Bill. And I plug it in, and let's see what balance is. That's not how you spell balance. Balance equal to $300. So that's how I follow that logic right there. And if I set it to Greg, it would be $200. So that's conditional statements. We're conditioning on a certain condition to execute some code. Looking forward to your questions in the comments. Have a good day, guys.